بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا. Ladies and gentlemen, Ramadan Mubarak to all of you وكل عام وأنتم بخير. 22nd of April, since 1970 it was remarked as Earth Day. All environmentalists are taking this day to reactivate their efforts and reinitiate their responsibilities about caring of the environment. Without collaboration with everyone in our Mother Earth, no one can achieve the goal of environmental protection. Tonight, Yanbu Industrial City is organizing the Earth Day Forum, where we are in now. And this great workshop is organized by the Royal Commission in Yanbu and sponsored by Yanbu Aramco Sinopec Refining Company, YASREF. And we will enjoy 75 minutes with great speakers inspiring us with great topics. My name is Badr Al-Jahani, and I'm honored to be the moderator of tonight's workshop. Before we go through our agenda, I would like to invite Mr. Mohammed Al-Nagash, YASREF President and CEO, to open our speech. Over to you, Mr. Mohammed.
Thank you, Badr. Assalamu alaikum and good evening to all. Ladies and gentlemen, it's with great pleasure that I greet all of you on behalf of Yanbu Aramco Sinopec Refining YASREF Company, in the occasion of Yanbu Industrial City Earth Day. Since the inception of April 22nd, 1970, Earth Day has been recognized as the target largest civic event in the world that has helped creating a sense of global responsibility to our environment and helped mobilizing millions of people around the globe for the protection of the planet. Earth Day has truly given a voice to an emerging public consciousness about the state of our planet. In the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, the Saudi Green Initiative and the Middle East Green Initiative, which were unveiled recently with His Royal Highness Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman Al Saud last month, included a number of ambitious projects designed to increase vegetation cover, reduce carbon emission, combat pollution, and preserve marine life. There have been major changes in the way that we interact with the nature and environment in the recent years. In YASREF, we have established a number of initiatives and programs to ensure no industrial residue or harm to our environment. Finally, we are looking forward for an excellent meeting with the great speakers and great topics. Thank you, and we are honored to be the sponsor of this event. This is Mohammed Nagash. Thank you, Badr. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mohammed. And we are now going to start our workshop agenda. And before we going to that, please allow me to highlight some notes. Our agenda will be split into 4 speeches followed by a live streaming for some activities which are currently going on in Yanbu City. There will be a Q&A. And you can feel free to drop your question in Q&A, as we are not much following the chat window. And all of your question will be attended by end of the 4 speeches, as per the time allowing. And if time not allowed to answer all questions, the unanswered question will be answered and sent by the email tomorrow, along with the material. All the material will be shared with you in the following day. I will not hold you longer for that, and without further ado, we will start our first session. Our first speaker is Dr. Alexander Jovchik, Department Manager, Environmental Protection and Control in Yanbu City. Floors is yours, Dr. Alex, and go ahead.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Assalamu alaikum, Ramadan Kareem. Ladies and gentlemen, it is a pleasure to present today. Let me share the screen and please let me know whether you can see the presentation. Right, slideshow, good. Ladies and gentlemen, Earth Day 2021. The motto today is, as the world returns to normal, we can't go back to business as usual. Now, we have seen in the news today that USA is intending to reduce carbon emissions by 50% from the 2005 limits by 2030. UK has gone to 78% of 1990 levels by 2035. A healthy planet is not an option, it is a necessity. It is our home. We need a healthy planet to be living in and to do all the things that we want to do. COVID has brought home to everybody. It has had a major impact on all of us. Travel was restricted, people were in lockdown, schools were closed, but we also saw that industrial activities reduced. And as you can see on the right, particulate matter 2.5 all over the world was reduced during lockdown because human activity had reduced. Now there are other examples. If you look at the before and after in air emissions, on the left you see China in yellow and red, very strong emissions before the lockdown, and then after the lockdown you can see the difference. Here is an impact from India. Similarly, because of less human activity, we were able to see more nature. Nature recovering and animals are coming back and re-inhabitating habitats. So you could see rays in Dubai harbor. You saw around the world more turtles hatching and breeding on beaches that hadn't seen them for decades. And you see dolphins swimming in Bosphorus Strait in Istanbul. On the terrestrial side, very famous photo of a puma walking the streets in Santiago de Chile. Mountain goats roaming through the streets in Wales. Deer going to restaurants in Japan. So when human activity reduces, nature recovers and nature takes it back again to do itself. What are we doing here in RC Yanbu? In RC Yanbu, we are running under the principle of win-win-win. We are an industrial city. If the industries would not be here and would not be having business and making a profit, we wouldn't also be here. But at the same time, there also needs to be a win for community, and that is in the type of employment, schools, hospital, facilities, parks, very nice lifestyle. And then there also has to be a win for the environment and sustainability. And this is where EPCD comes in. Now, what we hear from the world leaders, what they are intending to do, the pledges that they are giving. Now, I will be talking about what RC has been doing in the last few years and what we are intending to do. For example, RC Yanbu is one out of only 4 cities in Saudi Arabia that has ISO accreditation 37120. So who's not familiar, ISO is International Standard Organization and 37120 is for sustainable cities. So Yanbu is one out of 4 cities in Saudi Arabia that has a platinum accreditation. This standard is quite important because it allows cities to compare things on equal measure against each other. So if we have a look, we are in partner or in the same class as cities like Melbourne, Dubai, Barcelona, London, Los Angeles, and our little city here, Yanbu, has also got this very useful accreditation. If you look at the right, in comparison for 100,000 population, we are the world leader in planting trees. These are the data from 2019. If you look at comparison on other measures, full-time employment, because we are an industrial city, our employment is very high. Other cities also have some retirees and smaller children and other things. We have a very large amount of indoor sporting facilities, and we have a good representation for physicians and doctors here. So Yanbu is holding itself. And this allows us to compare ourselves against other cities using the standard. EPCD, on behalf of the Royal Commission, is undertaking an annual report on sustainability. And our report on 2020 is currently under review and soon to be published. In this report, we're using the United Nations Sustainability Development Goals. And again, this helps us to identify what areas we should be looking at for further development. For those of you who are not familiar with them, the sustainability goals from the United Nations were developed a number of years ago, and they cover everything from no poverty, no hunger, clean water, partnership to the goals, peace and justice. Of course, for a industrial city, not all of them are relevant. Peace and justice, we don't have any influence about it, but clean water, we can have a look at life on land, life below water. These are all things that are relevant for a city like us. EPCD within Royal Commission. EPCD, Environmental Protection and Control Department. The best for our foreign guests, the best estimation that I can give, this is similar to a state EPA in the US or in Australia, because literally RC Yanbu in our RC partner cities have a certain area that is really under our control, and we are setting the regulations here. So our jobs as EPCD, we're setting the environmental and sustainability policies. We have Royal Commission environmental regulations. These have just been reviewed recently, and there should be published in the near future. The department itself has 3 sections. Everything starts with permitting and enforcement. Permitting is when a new customer, industrial customer, comes and they want to build their plant. They need to get an environmental permit to construct. And even then, we look at the potential impacts that they could have on the environment in their design and everything else. And then once they have constructed their facility and they're operating them, they have an EPO, an environmental permit to operate, and that runs against the environmental regulations 2020. The monitoring team is split into air quality, water quality, waste management, marine, and we run our own lab for analysis. And then we have a planning and awareness team that is really there to do the communication with the community, whether it's industrial or the public community. If you have a look, air quality, if you look at the graph on the left, and you look the dotted line from the left to the right, you can see how much the air quality has improved from 2017 to 2020. We are operating 8 air quality monitoring stations, 6 fixed, 2 mobiles. And we're looking at an air quality index that's similar to what is used by the US EPA that focuses on different parameters: carbon monoxide, particulate matter, SOx and NOx, ozone, etc. They all would have an impact on the community. And as you can see, that is has been reduced over time. In the future, we want to engage further with our industrial customers to address sewage odor issues, industrial odor issues, and greenhouse gas emissions. We know, because we also know that national targets are coming up for that. On the water side, 100% of the sewage that is being produced by the community and by the industry is being reused for irrigation in our landscaping. On the industrial wastewater, at this stage, between 15, as you see here, 16, sometimes it's up to 30% is being reduced, and the rest is discharged as treated wastewater to the Red Sea. We have done a study recently, and we will want to engage further and reduce the discharge to the Red Sea and use this valuable source of water again to find other solutions, either as processed water or maybe to create biofuels or something like that. And of course, that always goes hand in hand with partners. Since its inception, RC Yanbu has planted close to 115,000 trees, and in 2020 alone it was close to 5,000. RC Yanbu has a total green space of roughly 1.3, 1.4 million square meters, and it's actually quite a nice green oasis in the middle of a bit more desert land from our neighbors. On the industrial waste, when you look from 2016 to 2020, we have increased the recycling from 32% to 57%. This is not we, this is us together with our partners. So when I say we, I mean always industrial customers together with RC, with EPCD. In each year, we exceeded the targets that were set. That is a fantastic achievement. On the domestic waste side, we had a recent study, and the study established that we have roughly 37% of non-recyclable materials. So 63%, there is an opportunity to recycle 63% on the domestic waste. In particular, food waste, paper, cardboard, plastic, and metals. The picture below, this is the e-waste initiative that is currently happening at Yanbu, where if you have any e-waste, old electrical equipment, whatever it might be, you can drop it off there, and that will be then sent away to be recycled. On the marine side, we have 3 nationally recognized marine protected areas with over 300 hectares of mangroves. These areas are checked by satellite imagery or by drone imagery on a regular basis, and that then allows our teams to go out and follow up in field studies what actually needs to be addressed. We also would love to extend the marine protected areas even further to the corals. That is something that we're investigating in the moment, whether that is possible for us or not. Here's an example where one of our industrial partners did mangrove planting with us. So they planted, Lupref planted 150 saplings of mangrove trees. And mangrove trees are very important for the protection of the coastal areas, but also for breeding of fish stocks, etc. Little known fact, everybody knows the Great Barrier Reef on the east coast of Australia. But very few people know that Yanbu also has got a little barrier reef that is actually third among the reef species in the Red Sea. And if you look at the hard coral, the cover lies somewhere between 39 and 55%. If you compare that against the rest of Saudi Arabia at 33% and Egypt at 41%, we are not doing badly as an industrial city. Lastly, we have got a community engagement, so our planning and awareness team. Part of that, we are conducting daily patrols. We'll be looking at the heavy and light industries. We also follow up on community complaints, and we are intending to introduce a 24/7 manned phone response. We share infographics and videos through social media, and you are joining us here because you have seen that on the social media. And we also interact with schools and students and industrial customers. We're looking in the moment to introduce a environmental awards for 2021. And the other thing that we are considering and need to discuss with our senior management is whether we can share some of the weekly data that we have for air quality, water quality, and beach quality to share with the community. Thank you very much. And the last thing that I have for tonight is who's living here in Yanbu, if you have the opportunity to join the activities at Yanbu tonight, please do so.
Thank you so much, Dr. Alex, for such great presentation. Really, everyone in Saudi Arabia, and especially those who are working and contributing to such success should feel proud of. Very happy to see the industry and nature are hand to hand and working together. Also very happy to see Yanbu city, one of the worldwide sustainable city, and the high number of trees reflecting the effort done by the army working behind the scene. Once again, thank you, Dr. Alex, for such a great presentation. Please, for participants, those who have questions, drop it to the Q&A, and please direct it to the speaker who you like him to or her to answer the question. Without any further ado, we will go to the next presentation. Our next speaker is Ms. Stephanie Sanger. Stephanie is a senior consultant at Quadra, and she will take us through another enjoyable 15 minutes. Floors is yours, Ms. Stephanie, and go ahead.
Thank you very much. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's my pleasure to be here in this special event today to talk to you about Earth Day in 2021. It's a privilege to have been asked to speak today. And what I would like to talk about is the benefits of having a good environmental management system. Having a really robust environmental management system is great, obviously, for the environment and for spreading the word on the environmental protection. So jumping in with my personal aims, I put this in because I'm passionate about, I suppose, environmental protection. And I think by spreading the word, if everybody could spread the word to just a few people, together we can basically make the world more sustainable. So it's my personal aim as an environmental professional to provide clear direction to address environmental risks to businesses. Basically, we can make them more adaptable in the future. We need to look at the businesses and think about their environmental management. I believe that if we can encourage all organisations to do their part in controlling the environmental aspects and impacts associated with their own organisational activities, that we can basically provide awareness, provide training to our employees. Then as a whole, we can have more knowledge to live a more sustainable life and protecting the environment from harm, basically making a new norm. What we want to do is have that new norm so the future generations can be more sustainable than us, the way we are now. It's just not good enough. I feel that we need to basically spread the word. I know that children, certainly in Northern Ireland, they're taught sustainability from a very early age in school. I know my 3-year-old can tell me when to save water and save electricity, yet I have clients that are much older and they just can't do that. So we need to put in a good environmental management system so we can help spread the word. So the importance of a good environmental management system then. It's often dealt with. So we quite often find that clients would have maybe an environmental incident before they really think about the environment. And that's after the damage has been done to our environment, and a great cost, massive cost for cleaning up after an environmental incident. By introducing those environmental considerations as part of the culture, thinking about it from the very forefront and the overall management strategy, it will help achieve the effective management without the sense that there has been a real drain in the resources. If you're reacting to an incident, you can see the cost of that. You don't necessarily see the cost, but you can certainly see the benefits of it if we can put that into the culture of the organisation. Environmental management doesn't have to be difficult. It doesn't have to be an overriding burden. It should be seen as an opportunity. It should save money. It should be better for the environment. It should we can relocate those finances into other activities that can help the business grow and develop.
Excuse me, Stephanie?
Yeah, sorry.
Would you like to share your slides with us?
Oh, sorry, is it not sharing?
No issue.
Sorry.
Just, you can now share it.
Are we okay now?
Yep,
sorry about that.
No issue. Yeah, just continue.
Okay, I'm back.
No issue, no issue.
So how do we apply environmental management? We basically have to look at that from the very forefront of the organisation. So we have to look at it. What are all of our activities in the organisation? Where can we help the environment? Well, we have to look right back to the procurement side of things. We have to look at the entire life cycle. So what raw materials do we purchase? Where do we purchase those raw materials from? Can we have a more sustainable source? And we have to look at everything there right from the very, very start, which essentially will save the company money, as well as saving the harm, basically reducing the harm to the environment. By implementing an effective environmental management system, we control the risks to the organisation from the environment. How can the environment harm us? How can we improve the wider environment around us? And what harm does our organisation pose on the environment? So we have to look at all of that. So what is an environmental management system? Some of you are probably thinking, what is an environmental management system? It's a question that I get asked on a regular basis. It's basically a framework that helps an organization achieve its environmental goals. It means that we have to look at the whole organization. We have to look at all of the activities that have an environmental impact. And we have to basically continually review those and see how we can improve those, make those better for the environment, for the earth. So the benefits of an environmental management system, the successful implementation of a robust management system. We have to think of a really good environmental management system. We can't just put in place an environmental management system just to tick the boxes. We have to really think about it, be serious about it. We have to have senior management, we have to have leadership and commitment. We can improve the environmental performance. We can improve resource efficiency by having formal policies and procedures in place. The management of waste and energy will be more effective, and consequently reducing the associated raw materials and operating costs with that. Better regulatory compliance. As part of an environmental management system, we have to look at our local legislation. We have to understand, what does it mean? What do we have to comply with? It helps reduce, I suppose, fines, penalties, prosecutions. It also means that we are complying with legislation, and we're sort of showing that badge to our competitors and badge to our customers and future customers, that we care about the environment, we are actually sustainable, and we are aiming for continual improvement. And if every organization can show this, together we can help improve the sustainability of our organizations throughout the whole of the world, the globe. It helps get new customers. It helps with new customers. It helps enhance employee morale. If we can buy in our employees, if we can provide them with more training, more awareness, quite often it's because the employees aren't maybe aware of how to be more sustainable. This can help them. This can give them some morale for working for a good company that has an environmental management system. It's really good for our public image, and it provides employee awareness of environmental issues and responsibilities, also of their issues and responsibilities at home. I'm a great believer in thinking environmentalists are wonderful. We can do so much to protect the environment, but we need to speak to each and every person, maybe who doesn't come from an environmental background. But we have to spread the word. It's our responsibility as environmentalists to spread the word to all of the other people who maybe don't understand, and tell them of the simple things that they can do, reducing water at home, reducing their electricity consumption, things like that. If we can tell everybody and spread the word, it's very, very, very important to me to do that as part of my daily job. I'm constantly spreading the word of the environment to everybody out there. So what environmental management system? There are many, many environmental management systems. There's standards in Britain, there's standards in America, there's many different standards out there. The one that I would work most closely with, the one that I would recommend, is ISO 14001:2015. The reason for this is it's globally recognized, and no matter where you are in the world, we all work off the same ISO system. It's a great system. It's a really robust system. It really encourages you to put in a very good environmental management system. It encourages you to look at your full environmental aspects, identify those that are significant, help reduce the significant aspects. It really helps you think about the whole life cycle of your activities. As Dr. Alexander had mentioned previously, ISO standards are the International Organization for Standardization. Some benefits of that is that we are internationally agreed standard for the environmental management system. It enables proactive management of environmental aspects. It's globally recognized, as I had just mentioned, and you're certified. You get like a big stamp, you get a big certificate at the end of that to say, we have met the requirements of ISO 14001, and that is a great achievement for any company. And employees should be proud to see that whenever they're working for that company. And it also helps us uncover, I suppose, it looks at pollution, water management, waste management. It covers all of those areas and encourages us to look at them all. And through implementation of ISO 14001, we have to apply the systematic approach to that. The Plan, Do, Check, Act. I'm sure many of you have already heard of Plan, Do, Check, Act, but it's very simple. We have to plan, what are we going to do? What do we want to achieve from this environmental management system? How are we going to implement it? Then we have to do it. We have to implement it. We have to look at those aspects. We have to make sure, okay, we've got them. We know how we're harming the environment. What can we do now to improve this? What control measures can we put in place? We have to check that we're doing that. And that's simple. Air monitoring, are the results improving? Water management, are we polluting less? We look at all of that. And then we have to take action. We have to make sure we continually improve and can easily demonstrate that continual improvement. We have to have commitment from the top. They have to be committed to environmental improvements. We have to demonstrate that. And that is really important as well. Unless senior management are committed, the bottom basically fails. We need senior management to commit to environmental management and to a robust environmental management system. And we need them to talk down to all of their employees the importance of this to them. And from there, we can all help each other. And the implementation process then of this, finally, is basically a gap analysis, identifying what does the standard require from us? What do we need to do to help improve the environmental management of our organisation? And then we have to develop the system, which takes some time and some commitment and some knowledge as well by using environmental consultants. If you haven't got the expertise in-house, it's very important to get that expertise, unless you're going to do it properly and somebody understands how to carry out environmental aspects review or environmental risk assessment, well, you're not going to be able to benefit from it. It's a worthless exercise unless you actually have some knowledge there. We have to implement the system, talk to our employees, tell them what to do, tell them how to improve the environment, give them training in waste management, training in pollution control, whatever it may be. We have to make sure we get everybody to buy into an environmental management system. Audit the system. We have to audit the system internally and obviously externally for 14001. And we have to make sure that we carry out those internal audits competently, impartially, and we do them not to catch somebody out, not to find non-conformances. We need to do the internal audits to make sure, yes, there is continual improvement. We are protecting the environment, and we're doing a good job. And finally, then we get our certification audit. That's whenever the external auditors come in and they praise us for doing the best job, praise us for wanting an environmental management system. It's not law. It's not law anywhere. We don't need to have 14001. We want to have 14001. We want to improve our environmental protection, and we want to be more sustainable. And that's all I have for tonight. Thank you very much. And as we mentioned before, if you want to pass over any questions you have for me or about environmental management systems, please do. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Stephanie, for such nice presentation. You took us through a very enjoyable journey through the management system, especially the ISO 14000, and how it is important to make us excellent in managing our environmental aspects. For sure, anyone do have a question, he can free to drop his question to Q&A, and Stephanie, by end of the session, will get the chance to answer the question. All the questions dropped in the Q&A will be attended either by end of the all 4 sessions or after the session, and will be attached with the presentation that will be shared with all participants. Without any further ado, and by the way, thank you, Stephanie, and thank you, Alex, for maintaining the time. We are going a little bit ahead of time, and thank you a lot for that. Moving to the third speaker, Mr. William Dolan. William is a director at Dolan and Associates Resources. He will take us through another 15 minutes of excitation. Bill, floors is yours. Go ahead and share your screens, please.
Okay. Hello there. Good evening, everybody. And thank you for the invitation to speak on Earth Day. And I know the team is Restore Our Earth, and that we kind of go back to business as usual. I'm going to give a presentation now on what's called extended producer responsibility. That's a system of producers taking responsibility for the products that they place on the market. This system kicked off in Europe way back in the late 80s, early 90s, and it's now growing to an evolved system known as extended producer responsibility. So just bear with me 1 second while I call up my presentation. Can everybody see that now?
Yep, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, if we can just continue on, extended producer responsibility is an extension of a system that was already previously in Europe, just known as producer responsibility. And the very first part directive of that in Europe, in the European Union, that is, was packaging and packaging waste. Simply put, EPR, or extended producer responsibility, is a policy instrument, and it seeks to change business for the betterment of the environment. It's evolved over 35 years and applies to member states. I'm going to refer to a study that was done in 2014, where we looked at the building on and increasing the reach of extended producer responsibility. And I will be talking about, at that time, the study was 28 member states. As you're probably aware, as of this year, we're now 27 member states in the European Union. The United Kingdom haven't left. Worldwide, so in Europe, there was about 130 EPR schemes in place, but there's 400 worldwide based on the producer responsibility EPR model. EPR is changing business for the betterment of the environment, so I hope that this outline will inform and help your thinking on this subject. Just a small bit of information to give you a bit of background on myself, which will hopefully help you as I explain the presentation. It's certain, if you're not familiar with the terminology, it'd be difficult to understand. So I have tried to keep it simple, but please come back to me if anybody does not understand some of the terminology, because I must admit, EPR is a legal requirement placed into European Union directives, which must be enacted by each of the member states. Each of the member states can interpret how they apply that going on. So going back to my background, I'm a chartered environmentalist and waste manager. I'm 36 odd years in the profession. I worked for Ireland's National Producer Responsibility Organisation. The other thing, the acronym is known as a PRO, and so bear in mind that when I mention the initials PRO, I mean Producer Responsibility Organisation. And as we said earlier, in Europe, there's about 131 of them, and there's about 400 worldwide. So I have a knowledge and experience of other PROs in Ireland and Europe and other waste streams. And if anybody has any questions, please, my contact details are at the end of the closing slide. So to continue on, extended producer responsibility. There is a number of definitions going around, but I particularly like this one for the Organization of Economic Community Development. Environmental policy, it's an environmental policy approach in which the producer responsibility for a product is extended to the post-consumer stage of a product's life cycle. Now, this has been a fundamental change from the initial producer responsibility, which was just a cradle to grave aspect, whereas now we're speaking cradle to cradle aspects, which and taking in the full life cycle of the product from its birth to its death, so to speak. But it must take in all the environmental considerations along the supply chain. A lot of the EPRs work in synergy with other environmental and waste management initiatives and policy and legislation. One of the fundamental things that it does, I don't know if any of you are familiar with, but in Europe we have a waste management hierarchy, which is by law must be adhered to, and all the directives and all the subsequent legislation and policy must pay due course to that hierarchy. The hierarchy works on the most favored option, waste management option, and the least favored waste management option. The most favored waste management option is prevention and minimization, and the least favored is disposal, i.e. landfill. This mirrors, and you'll see a graphic here, which I've taken from the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, because circular economy is something that all the environmental and waste management legislation must try and work with, and we're talking about synergies. And I just mentioned the aforementioned waste management hierarchy. It is following the circular economy. For instance, if we talk about the very top of the circle, I don't know if you can see my cursor moving around here, redesign. I would liken that to prevention and minimization parts of the waste management hierarchy, where for future products to be placed on any of the European Union markets, it should be designed and fit for purpose, and it should have minimal environmental impacts. And it should be the raw material feedstock into making that product should be as eco-friendly as possible. That leads on to the management of the manufacturer. Same thing, the manufacturer should use lean technology and the best available techniques to have to make the product and to minimize any environmental impact in the manufacture of that product, and also to reduce any waste associated. Well, process waste is a big problem in manufacturing products. And so by reducing process waste, i.e. when they're making the product in the first instance, and it's not only does it has cost savings, but it has great environmental savings. And finally, when it gets into the retailers, i.e. the supermarkets of this world, that they can, it's fit for purpose, i.e. If it's packaging, that it can give a long shelf life to the products. In terms of the retail, one important element of packaging is that it has the ability to maintain the food stock. They can get it from farm to shelf in a reasonable amount of time and give a safe product to the consumer, that when they buy it, i.e. the user, when they take it home, that it'll again have a further lifetime. But a big problem in waste management is food waste. Certainly in Europe it is, in that they estimate that about 40% of food is wasted, i.e. it's gone by its use by date, sell by date. And finally, that when the user is finished with the said product that they buy, be it a waste electrical, be it a television, which turns into be a waste electrical, or a radio, or be it packaging, that is there an opportunity there for it to have a second life? Can it be repaired? Can we send it into reuse? Can we? This is all about keeping it in the economy, keeping it circular, and trying to avoid disposal of it. And finally, that if once it's been through all those aspects, is it also available to the recycling community industry? Is the when it becomes a waste product, is it readily recyclable? Is there going to be demand for that material in available markets that are there? And obviously, that when it is recycled, that it will come back into the loop again to make a new product. So if I can talk about in 2014, the European Commission published a report on developing guidance for extended producer responsibility. And this involved, as you can see from the diagram here, the 28 member states. In essence, the study was done by primarily by biointelligence and others. And I have a reference down here that you can get it from the presentation letter if you want to read the document. In essence, the document took a bottom-up approach. But it involved information from 28 member states, involving 36 case studies, and it looked at 6 specific waste streams at that time. Primarily, it looked at packaging, end-of-life vehicles, and others, so then it also looked at a top-down approach where it involved 100 stakeholders spread across about 131 PROs, or packaging producer responsibility organizations. And the fundamental part of the top-down part was the inclusion of accurate and diverse expertise that covered the many different waste streams of the product and waste streams that they looked at. So this diagram here summarizes the work that went into producing the guidance. And I mentioned that it was they got information from 131 producer responsibility schemes. I looked at selected waste streams. It involved 36 case studies, And one of the conclusions to come up with 4 main issues, which I'll talk about a bit later in another slide. And this is all feeding into the guiding principles. Obviously, there was a lot of consultation going on in this. Would involve about 100 stakeholders, as I said. So in essence, the background to extended producer responsibility, I suppose the guinea pig, as I said earlier in one of my slides, was the packaging and packaging waste directive. It's not a true EPR, but in essence, it is now, because they amended the latest waste framework directive to ensure that packaging moves along also in partnership with 3 other directives that where it's written into having extended producer responsibility is written into the directive, which is the very first one being in the year 2000, which is end of life vehicles, and then batteries and accumulators in 2006, and the Waste Electronic and Electrical Equipment Directive in 2012. And all of these must now take in adding environmental costs along the life cycle of the product. And they also must reflect the waste management hierarchy, which I summarized previously. And how are they going to do this? Basically, they're all about, this is all about changing behavior in the supply chain. So in essence, they will have to look at the product value chain, look at the product makers, and involve the retailers, involve citizens, and i.e. the consumers, involve local authorities or municipalities as they're known in the rest of Europe. It'll also have to involve the public and private waste management actors who go out and collect the said waste and arrange for its recycling and or recovery, as the case would be. Given that, we also need recyclers. We need people who will buy the recycled commodities, be it paper, plastic, steel, waste electronic equipment, and make new products out of it. In essence, they also need to work with social economic actors, and as we have a number of environmental pressure groups in Europe, as they are worldwide, such as you have today, being Earth Day. So that's under consideration. EPR structures, how are they set up? As I said, in the 28 member states, there was 131 schemes. 2014. So there are 6 options that they have. They can be private organizations, they can be public or state organizations, they can be either not-for-profit or profit, they can either be a single monopoly, or they can be multiple schemes. Just on the latter bit, on the monopoly side, as an example, I will point to packaging and packaging waste. In Ireland, there's also a single compliance scheme for packaging waste, whereas in other parts, such as our neighbour in the United Kingdom, at that period of time, they had 44 schemes, or still have 44 schemes, in competition with each other to deliver, producer responsibility obligations. The study, 2014 study, came up with 4 main points, and the 4 main points was the allocation of responsibilities among stakeholders. There's a lot of stakeholders, so some of the stakeholders, their responsibility just had to go out and pay for the collection of material. The other side of it ranged up to others that not only did they collect it, but they also had to physically set up companies to do it on their behalf and ensure that that's what happened. In terms of costs, there was many variables in the costs across the 28 member states. For instance, go back to the UK, it's known, reported for packaging and packaging waste, that the responsibility systems there are only paying about 10% of the cost, the other 90% of the cost being picked up by the government. And in Ireland, the figures estimate that they're paying 75 to 80% of the cost. It's what they call a shared producer responsibility model there. But you have the likes of Belgium, FOS Plus, they pay 100%, and their budget is about a billion to do what they do. So you have all these variables across Europe. There is no one uniform or common application of extended producer responsibility. In terms of competition, how is it organized? As I said, you can have a single PRO or you can have multiple PROs. So that's an issue going forward. The other thing is transparency and control. What are the reporting requirements? There's various requirements across all of Europe. There's no one single one. And finally, I suppose a big concern that the report said is who polices the PRO or producer responsibility organization. I'll just speak from my example, having worked for the one in Ireland. It's policed by the Department of Environment in Ireland, but in other countries such as the United Kingdom, where there's 44 schemes, it's unknown, as to the level of policing that's happening there. So in 2012, there was another study taken, and this is the latest study as they're trying to implement the extended producer responsibility. And this was a study that was undertaken by Yanbu Consultancy. Again, if you look at the slide here, I put in the reference if anybody wishes to later on pick it up and go through it in detail they can. They actually came up with 4 issues as well. Some of them mirroring the previous study that was done in 2014. Again, they sort of said about cost. Their concern at this point, when they looked at that cost, that the cost raised by the producer or the funding raised by the producer responsibility system doesn't actually exceed the true management costs. i.e. they're not paying above and beyond what they need to do. The other thing in fee modulations that each of the PRO should introduce, and it's ongoing right now as we speak, where the fee should reflect the recyclability of the product that's been placed on the market. And this would take on board a lot of the environmental considerations. For example, it should reflect the product's durability, its repairability, its reusability, and recyclability. So those are issues going forward. In terms of the other point, in terms of equal treatment, as I said, there's quite 131 systems or producer responsibility organizations in Europe, and the producers should be able to meet the minimum requirements of the director without placing a disproportionate burden on other parts of industry. And they're really thinking in mind that, so like small producers and SMEs, they want them to bring that into their thinking when the PROs, that when they introduce a system that is open and user-friendly and fair to everybody to discharge their legal obligations for what is placed on the European Union market. In terms of monitoring and enforcement, the EPR obligations is to ensure that all producers pay. There's two things that have arisen, particularly in COVID-19, is distant sales. There's a lot of product coming into the European Union which they're not obligated to pay a producer responsibility fee. But the material arrives after its use, becomes waste in Europe, and it has to be handled. There is also an issue of free riding. There is elements of certain systems where companies just don't pay, and they've got away with it for years, and that places a burden on the free market system that's in Europe. So finally, overall, the thing is that the report sets out the minimum operating requirements, and it's trying to avoid distortion of the internal market to be avoided. So in the keeping that this is Earth Day, what is the benefit of having extended producer responsibility? Going back to that, we have only one planet, we only have finite uses of resources. We believe, or I believe, that extended producer responsibility has many benefits to it in this aspect, and I'm going to just briefly talk about some of them. First of all, it applies the waste management hierarchy, which I alluded to earlier. It applies a polluter pays principles, i.e. that the producer has to pay for all the full costs, or should pay for the full cost, and that includes environmental management across the whole supply chain. Also, that it should maintain secondary markets. It's important that we keep the raw materials and keep that buoyant in Europe, because it saves new material having to be extracted and associated environmental impact to make new products. It's been very good in that it's helped since the early 90s. We've seen a reduction in landfilling in Europe. And I will give an example of Ireland, where I'm from, in that when the packaging directive was introduced. We had in 1997, there was somewhere in the region of 300 landfills or dumps, basically, at that time. But then licensing came in, and that reduced to 150. At this point in time, with the introduction of the producer responsibility system there, and other such systems, be it batteries and accumulators and the waste electronic systems, we only have three landfills now available. That's all they need, and the overall rule of thumb is trying to get down in terms of municipal solid waste management to only have 10% going to disposal, or nothing going to disposal, so that the EPR systems will be as optimum as possible. One of the other things that it's doing is, so that will help resource efficiency, is that one of the other things that the EPRs are doing is they're going to be recycling. You heard me mention modulated fees. There's an obligation for all the EPR systems to introduce that, so that they will disencourage or disincentivize material or product being placed on the markets that are unrecyclable. And there's also another push on that on certain products that the product should be mandatory or legally obligated to have a recycling content. So that's another element that is going there. So overall, in keeping with EPR policy, the studies indicate that the ongoing change in business to restore our earth and ensure limited material resources are kept in use as long as possible and managed in an environmental responsible way. So EPR, in my view, and I hope I'll gladly take on any questions on that and queries that you may have, that is a good thing, considering the topic that we have today of earth and managing our resources as possible as well as we can. So if anybody has any questions, my contact details are at the end here if we don't have time for them today. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Bill, for the great presentation you have made. Really, as a sustainability passionate, I see circular economy is one of the top agenda of any sustainability strategy in any organization. And if you visit the top 4 or top 5 petrochemical companies in the world, you see the circular economy in their agenda, and you cannot miss it anywhere. There are a couple of questions. We will come to it by end of the session. And by the time we are moving to the 4th slot in our nice workshop tonight, which will be delivered by Mr. Haytham Bahashwan. Haytham is the environmental superintendent in Yasref. I just want to remind all participants that after the session, we will go through live streaming, so don't miss that enjoyable session. And now we will stay together with Mr. Haytham. Floors is yours, Mr. Haytham. Go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening to all, and Ramadan Mubarak. Thank you for having me in this virtual conference of Earth Day. At the beginning, it is worthy to start with the definition of environment, which is everything surrounds us, including air, water, land, natural resources, flora, fauna, human beings, and their interrelation. Even though the planet we live in is rich in all these resources, but it needs help to sustain and thrive. That is why on April 22, on each year, the world celebrated the Earth Day. Increasing awareness of environmental protection and building an environmental culture are very important to promote positive behavior to preserve and protect the environment. The slide is shown okay, Abu Abdurrahman?
Yep, go ahead.
The emissions of air pollutants that trap heat in the atmosphere are called greenhouse gases. These gases are capable of absorbing infrared radiation, then trapping heat in the atmosphere. By increasing the heat, greenhouse gases are irresponsible for this effect, which ultimately leads to global warming. And the primary sources of GHG emissions are the transportation sector, which is responsible for generation of the largest share of greenhouse gas, followed by electricity production and industries, which contribute to generate GHG emissions by burning fossil fuels for energy. On the other hand, increasing the supply of renewable energy would allow us to replace carbon-intensive energy sources with unlimited natural sources such as wind, sun, and water, and significantly reduce global warming. In addition, water is an essential component of countless human activities and all living creatures. It sustains our wildlife in the streams, forests, and is also used in our homes for washing, cooking, and cleaning. Industries use water as a part of their manufacturing processes, and it used also to produce energy in hydroelectric dams. However, the limitation of water resource is a worldwide issue, as less than 1% of fresh water can be used by humans. And we need to increase the knowledgeable awareness amongst our society in order to enhance the concept of water usage. Resisting desertification by increasing the vegetation cover is important to purify the air and enhance the weather temperature. Saudi Green Initiative and the Middle East Green Initiative that launched by His Royal Highness Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman Al Saud last month included a number of ambitious projects designed to increase vegetation cover, reduce carbon emissions, combat pollution, and preserve marine life. Ladies and gentlemen, as today Yasrif is a sponsor of Earth Day event, I would like to present briefly the most valuable programs and environmental management systems that Yasrif is implementing to conserve environment aspects and ensure the compliance with the Royal Commission environmental regulations. Yasrif environmental management systems begin with the understanding on how an organization can interact and cooperate with the environment aspect. The air emissions management system is controlling and measuring all types of sources of emission sources such as leaking components, stacks, furnaces, and ensure their compliance to the environment standard and Royal Commission environmental regulation. That chart front of you is demonstrating Yasrif efforts to sustain reducing air pollutant through vegetative emission program, where more than 77,000 components are monitored on an annual basis. The second one is the water management system, which is working to conserve water and ensure complying with the specifications. And this chart shows Yasrif reduction of steam consumption, which reached to 29 tons per hour in 2020. And as a part of water management system, Yasrif achieved 9% of reduction in 2020 for plant process water consumption, and achieved around 70% of reduction for potable water consumption after implementing internal recycling water stream and CDU and DCU units. In accordance with Yasrif's commitment to preserve natural resources, groundwater and soil protection management system comes to support this concept and ensure Yasrif compliance. Finally, the waste management program assists Yasrif to minimize industrial waste and manage resources more effectively. In 2019, Yasrif has reduced the generated industrial hazardous waste as a total quantity. This achievement was represented around 70% of industrial waste reduction comparing with the previous years. In accordance with the climate change, Yasrif is the only refinery in the kingdom which is producing diesel with ultra low content of sulfur that contributes to minimize the sulfur emissions in engines. Besides, all external combustion equipment such as furnaces, boilers, and incinerators are operated with ultra low nitrogen oxide emissions in order to provide more protection to the environment. As a matter of fact, Yasrif has been recognized as an excellent organization on many occasions, and recently, Yasrif won 3 out of 4 of Saudi Aramco 2020 President Joint Venture Excellence Award and the best performer in field of health, safety, and environment, asset availability, and operational excellence. To conclude, living with consciousness and conserving the surrounding environmental resources are our responsibilities. Therefore, Yasrif will continue its journey aligned with Saudi Arabia ambitions to protect environment and natural resources and keep exerting efforts to reduce emissions of greenhouse gases and minimize industrial waste. So let us work together to protect our earth by building environmental culture and healthy sociable atmosphere that accommodate individuals. At the end, I would like to express my pleasure again for having me in this conference and participating with the activity of raising the awareness of Earth Day. Thank you, and back to you, Badr.
Thank you so much, Haytham. Nothing but big wow, I can say, for the figures that you have presented in sustainability performance for Yasrif. Really, everyone in this great company should feel proud of such success. Now we are about to approach the 5th and last activity of our tonight workshop. Before that, just allow me to pick some of the questions raised to the guest we have today, and we will pick some of them because of the time limitation. Then we will soon move to the live streaming because Mr. Muhammad is waiting for us there. There is a question to Dr. Alex regarding if there is a licensed company for e-waste in Yanbu. Go ahead.
Not here in Yanbu, but we are collecting. So if the participant would like to drop the e-waste off at the Dana Mall container, once the container is full, this will be transported off to our sister city in Jubail, Royal Commission in Jubail. They have a facility over there.
Thank you, Doctor. Another question to you. One of our participants is asking about the sustainability strategy in Yanbu and whether it's following the 3 dimensions of sustainability, ESG. Can you elaborate on that?
We are looking at the United Nations Sustainability Goals, and our sustainability report for 2020 includes areas like education, finance, hospitals, sporting activities, all kinds of things in this regard. It's not only environment, it's a wider, but we are just starting with the process. It will have to come over time.
Thank you so much, Alex. Sorry. Yes, there is a question to Ms. Stephanie regarding the efficiency of the environmental management system in practical life.
Sorry, I'm just looking for that one.
Can I, you want me to find the question again?
Yeah, please, if you could repeat the question. That'd be perfect. Thank you.
Let me go and try to find it. Meanwhile, let's pick another question, because I lost the question now. I will come to it again. And there is another question. Sorry, Stephanie, for that.
Okay.
There is another question come to here to Bill, whether the question is if the EPR and how it can end the waste protocols and how that can assist the waste procedures.
Okay. Basically, extended producer responsibility is the obligation on producers who place product on the market to pay for its collection and recycling and our recovery. When I say recovery, I mean waste to energy. Those are the options at the moment. End of waste protocols are basically an understanding with the regulatory authorities. In the Republic of Ireland, we have the Environmental Protection Agency, and under the primary legislation in Ireland, it's got the Waste Management Act 96. It's that the said material is no longer deemed to be a waste, so it removes the burden of them having to have permits and licensing to do that. So it allows that when they collect the waste material, sorry, I can't think of it, or it's not captured by waste regulation requirements, and they can actually go to the market, more freely. In essence, that's what it is. It is just removing the burden on those companies to satisfy the authorities that the waste has been managed effectively.
Thanks, Bill. Another question to you, Bill. How do you think the EPR scheme could be implemented in Royal Commission, Yanbu?
Okay, yeah, I've seen that. I was typing an answer for it. How long is a piece of string is the answer. As one of my slides said, there's six aspects to EPR. How you can set it up. There is that choice that member states or obligated countries that they can take on board how they want to set up the EPR or the Producer Responsibility Organization that implements the EPR. Like some member states, just the EPR is just a financial system. It raises money, revenue from the obligated producers, and then it passes that money to the waste management sector to undertake the collection and said recycling and so on. Certain other countries, they have ownership. They take 100% ownership from the time the material is placed on the market to the time it becomes a waste. And obviously, when they're managing the waste, one of the things they can do is they can get a revenue if it's a certain recyclable commodities are worth some have value and worth money, and that can defraud the initial producer responsibility fees that they play. So you know, there's a lot of choices out there. So if you're thinking of introducing an EPR, our recommendation would be to have a stakeholder consultation and get all the parties in to decide on what is best for your country, what is best for your city, or whatever the case would be. You know, and what I suppose the driving thing is, what are you trying to achieve? You know, the collection, recycling, or an environmental, or you know, or a sustainable way to manage this going forward. So there's lots of choices and lots of decisions to be taken.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Bill. Back to you, Stephanie. The question directed to you is how regulators can rely on EMS in order to ensure the compliance.
Okay, yes, I did see that one. Thank you. In my experience, an environmental management system, although it's not regulation, the regulators will quite often look at that and say, okay, you've got a certificate of certification. So you are being audited by a competent auditor. And as part of the environmental management system, you have to demonstrate compliance with legislation, with different regulations. And so the regulator will quite often be more lenient with fees, maybe reduces the amount of site visits that they're having, because they're confident that the environmental auditor that is auditing you and giving you that certificate is checking for compliance. So they're happy that you're already demonstrating compliance, which means that they can sort of lay off you a little bit. It is at their discretion. There's no written rules to say, because you have an environmental management system, we're not going to come out to you as often. But quite often what I see, in my experience anyway, regulatory authorities will not sort of attend a site that has an environmental management system as frequently, unless there has been past problems with that site. There's standards there's clauses within the standard that sort of say that we have to demonstrate compliance. So because they actually can demonstrate the certificate, that shows that they've met those requirements. I hope that helps. If there's any questions, you can ask more.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. There are still a number of questions which are still unanswered. We will collect all of them and direct it to the related speakers. The answers will be allocated again and attached with the presentation that will be shared with you by tomorrow, inshallah. And now we are going to the most exciting part of the workshop, which is the live streaming with our colleague Mohammed Al-Alwani. And the floor is to you, Mr. Mohammed. Unmute yourself and tell us what is ongoing now in the field. Mohammed, over to you.
السلام عليكم. أتمنى إنه يكون الصوت واضح.
Yeah, voice is clear. Go ahead.
السلام عليكم. الصوت واضح؟
نعم واضح. If you can speak محمد، إذا تقدر تتكلم محمد، أساس بس تطلع الصورة. محمد, are you still with us?
أيوة السلام عليكم.
عليكم السلام.
الصوت واضح الآن؟
جدا واضح. Go ahead.
طيب. أولا أهلا وسهلا بالجميع. المعرض مكون من عدة أركان أو فعاليات، فيها بعضها الملهم وفيها بعضها اللي هو يزرع في نفوس الأطفال اللي هم إحنا نعمل من أجلهم لمستقبل مشرق لهم على كوكب الأرض. على سبيل المثال من الأركان الموجودة، هذه الشتلات توزع على الزوار ويعطونهم طريقة زراعتها. على سبيل المثال يمسحون هذا الباركود وهو في بيته يعرف كيف يزرعها في حوش البيت، أمام البيت، بالطريقة اللي يشوفها مناسبة. طبعا عدة شتلات ومتعددة. بعد ذلك في كان ركن هنا جدا جميل بس للأسف نفد، كان عبارة عن بذور كثيرة أكثر من 25 بذرة وطريقة زراعتها وكيفية زراعتها. وأيضا كانوا حاضرين معنا الأخوان شركة بيت الطاقة للشرح للزوار وللعامة عن ماهية الطاقة البديلة أو الطاقة النظيفة. وأيضا حاضرين إدارة حماية ومراقبة البيئة بعض الأجهزة لتثقيف الزوار عن طريقة عملهم. على سبيل المثال هذه الأجهزة اللي أمامنا هذه يستخدمونها بشكل دوري للبحر، بحيث أنه ما تأثر الصناعات إذا انسكب منها شيء من الشركات أو الصناعات، فيحتوون الموقف أول بأول. وكذلك معانا العربة حاضرة، هذه اللي هي محطة مراقبة جودة الهواء. طبعا كانوا يشرحون للزوار طريقة عملها وطريقة تحسين المناخ في ينبع الصناعية. وآخر شيء كان عندنا أو ما قبل الأخير، طبعا مشاركة معنا شركة سعودي داز في هذه الحاوية اللي هي إعادة تدوير والتخلص الآمن من النفايات الإلكترونية. ومعانا ركن صغير جدا ولكن كبير بمعناه، ألا وهو الالتزام البيئي. يعني كانوا الحضور هنا يجون من أطفال ومن كبار، الاسم والتوقيع وطريقة الالتزام البيئي وتعليقها على هذا اللوح. هذا كل ما لدي أستاذ بدر، ويعطيكم العافية.
شكرا جزيلا لك أستاذ محمد. Thank you so much, Mr. Muhammad, for this exciting view. And I wish that I am close to you, that I will participate in this small festival. By end of the session, I would like to give the appreciation and thanks to Royal Commission Yanbu for organizing such event. Also, I would like to thank Yasrif for sponsoring this event. I would like to thank you, all the guest speakers, for being with us tonight and enriched our brain and mind with a lot of important topics regarding the environmental protection and our responsibility, our ways of the solution that we can do. I would also thank you all who spare the time and be with us as participants. We hope that we met your expectation from such event, and I wish we can see you soon in the near future. Thank you so much, and assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Good night. Bye bye.